Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Blaster Breakdown. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yeah, it's been a while between mods. However, today I've got something special for you. Question: when is a Retaliator not a Retaliator? When it's a remote line HPA Sniper Retaliator. That's right, Spectre's released his latest HPA core, the Sniper core, and if he could get around to doing that, I could get around to doing a build guide. This is now a remote line, talent-fed HPA semi-auto blaster with an open bolt. Before we get stuck in though, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Though I can't promise you'll be getting regular reminders of new content. Okay, let's make a start by unboxing this Retaliator. Let's keep going. We're getting there. Darts can go in the bin. Mag can go in the bin. These bits we'll come back to, and let's crack this open. Okay, as usual, these Phillips head screws will all go in the bin. I'll replace those with hex head or socket cap screws. That comes off. Here's the inside. Now, none of the inside we need except for just a few parts. So the trigger we'll need, the mag release we'll need, everything else is going to go. Okay, so here's really all I need at this stage. Sniper core is going to sit about here. I have a 3D printed muzzle piece designed by Blaster Tech. That slots in here, and that will hold the receiver of the Sniper core at the right length. The barrel will then screw in the front. My MJV03 valve will be the trigger. That'll sit somewhere like that. There's some hose going from this outlet here into the back of the Sniper core. For our remote line connection, that will go through this little bit that sits at the bottom of the grip. I'll hollow that out so this sits a bit deeper in, push fit screwed in from that end, and a little bit of hose from there to the inlet of the MJV03 valve. And that's about as complicated as it needs to be. So I will go and cut away all this molding here, make space in here for my valve, do the same on the other side, and there's not a lot more to it than that. Okay, things are coming along nicely now. It's a few days later. I've cut out all the molding on the inside here and here on both sides. Make space for Supercore and the MJV03 valve to sit there. I've also glued in my quick disconnect fitting that will sit at the bottom here, so that'll be really firm when it's held in place. And I've glued my Sniper core receiver into this printed piece that sits at the front here, so that when my adapter is in place and I load a Talon, the dart lines up just nicely, ready for the pusher to push it in, and off we go. Okay, so the next things to do are, Supercore will sit here, MJV03 valve will sit about there, and be activated by the trigger. To get these placements exactly right, what I'm going to do is use this 3D doodler pen, stick a filament in the end, and it heats up and it comes out in a string. And so basically I can just draw a bracket or a bed for these parts to sit in, a bit underneath, a bit on the sides, and that'll give me effectively a 3D printed, well, a 3D drawn framing or mount for these two parts, so they're held in place exactly where they need to be. So that's the next thing to do. Let's see how it works out. Okay, things are coming along nicely for the most part. So I've gone ahead and used my 3D doodler pen to draw a bracket, I guess, for the MJV03 valve. It sits really snug in there. It's held in place all around. I've also got a bit on this side to clamp it together when the shell is shut. That was great. I also plan to do the same thing for the Supercore. However, it was just too fiddly getting the filament in here and on the top. So in the end, I went old-fashioned with the epoxy putty. Strip at the top and bottom here, lined it all up. Same thing on the other side, clamp it together, perfect positioning. So the last thing to do then is connect the pneumatics. So a while ago, I got a length of 6mm coiled tube, which is much easier to work with than the regular black hard tube. So I've been enjoying using that. What that means is I can do things like connecting the lower piece. I can have arrangements like this, so I don't need to directly line up my push fits, which is nice. Up the top here, got this elbow piece, but then it's in like so, like that goes like that. Trigger piece in there. You can see how that activates the MJV03, and then the And then that's all held together like so. Nice and neat. So that's pretty much everything done for the main body of the blaster. We've now got the stock and the barrel part to look at. Let's look at the barrel first. Okay, so the way I want this to work is the seagull or Harrier barrel screws in like so. I don't want all this length. That will sit in like so at the front of the blaster. And I've got this printed bearing scar that I want to have sit inside this piece right around here, so there'll be nothing at all protruding there. So what I'm going to do is open this bit up, work out what length I want to cut the metal barrel to, and maybe do a bit of chopping on the inside to make space for the B car as well. All right, so let's crack this open. There we are. Okay, so let's just slide this out. And this piece, faux barrel, doesn't do anything, although I will make use of this center piece. Where I think the work is going to be done is cutting away on the inside here. I've got space for scar to sit about there, and so that, of course, the bearings need to spin freely. So let's go and do that. Okay, this front part is just about done now. My barrel I've cut to 180 millimeters, and now with the bearing scar in place, these bits in. That now sits just nicely inside the front here, so it'll all be concealed. These pieces, I had to grind out these parts on both sides, of course, and also a little bit on these bits that go in, so there's enough space for the extra thickness. With the faux barrel, I cut off the ends and kept the middle bit because it fits into these slots here. So I've put a bit of electrical tape and just sliding that on, that'll help keep the barrel centered. Now, putting this together, line that up. It's like so. Goes there. Sight. There we are. Nice and neat. And if you can see down the center there, we got the bearing scar in place, all concealed. Looks nice and neat. The next thing then to do is work on the stock. Now, you might recall at the back here where the sniper core has a bit of hosing that runs through this bit here. So I need to make some space. This will sit over. I need to make some cuts on the inside here, just making some extra space for that hosing. It won't affect the outside at all. Now, because this orange locking mechanism is one piece that actually runs underneath here, I'm going to have to cut that into two. So I'll undo these screws, pull this bit out, cut it into two, and then just kind of hold each left and right side on with these screws, but there'll be a gap in the middle. So they'll be a bit looser, but they'll be good enough. This end cap piece as well goes over, so I'll need to cut some here for that hose. So let's go and do that, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, we're almost done. So the end cap piece, I've just cut a gap there, and the stock kind of similar there. So these are the two bits that used to be one, so I've had to cut them through the middle there, but they're each sitting in there nice and spring-loaded. So that all together will completely cover the hosing we've got there. Okay, so the last thing to do before assembly is work out what I'm going to do with this slide. So I could leave the blaster just like that. I don't obviously need the slide to prime the blaster, and I could just leave it sliding freely back and forth. That might get a bit annoying when I'm using the blaster though. I like having the opening here, which is why I don't have the jam door in place. However, because of the cutting I did on the inside to make space for the sniper core, I've lost two screw posts here. So what I'm actually going to do is glue these two pieces to the left and right side of the shell. So that's more or less firm there, and that's firm there. And then I can use these two screw holes to give me a bit of extra stability there, holding the top of the blaster shut. So that's the last thing I need to do on the outside. Glue those in place. It'll mean the slide won't slide, which is fine. But that does then let me do things like if I wanted to attach a Picatinny adapter so I could have a sight, that'll be on the back end. So just a bit of super glue either side. I'll let that cure overnight, and we'll come back tomorrow morning and put this all together. Okay, we're ready to put this together now. There was one last little bit I need to do on the inside. This knob that the slide piece has would actually stick into the edge of the sniper core, so I just ground that off so it's more or less flush. I'll start with the muzzle piece. Got a couple of M3 screws to hold it down here. Sniper core sits in. I think I might have been calling this a super core half the video, so apologies for that. Also have it. So the valve sits down. You can see how the trigger is working nicely. That's all held down together nicely now. That, very nice. So, stock attachment point can go there. The short M3 screws. M2.6 by 8. Of course, as usual, I'm replacing the original Phillips head screws with these socket cap. These two at the front and bottom had longer screws, so I've got 16 or 14 meters length. Of course, 2 more for the top here. Okay, and that's that. Nice and solid, nice and secure. Our alignment there looks really good. So I can attach my remote line, turn on my air, and put some darts in. Very nice. Okay, so the stock will just clip on. Nothing special there, just a regular attachment. Of course, I replaced all the screws with hex head screws as well, just because that's me. And the front. So we want to attach this piece first of all. Our barrel screws in. Then this side first. Centering piece lines up. 6 screws for this one. Our front pieces. And that is done. So, completely stock looking Retaliator. Nothing protruding at the front. Nothing sticking out the back. You can see it's a sniper core receiver in the front there. And of course our remote line. Otherwise, this one is done. So if we add the foregrip for tactical points, flip up our sight for accuracy. Let's attach the air again. Fire a few darts. Very nice. Okay, let's take this one outside and get some FPS readings. Okay, let's get some numbers. I'm using worker heavies, starting off at 80 PSI. Oh, that's pretty nice. Spot on 150 FPS, which would be perfect for super stock games. Bumping it up to 100 PSI. About 175. Pretty nice. And up again to 120 PSI. So a bit more variation there, averaging a bit under 200. Okay, let's see how we go for accuracy. I've attached this red dot sight using a Nerf Picatinny adapter sitting on top of the non-sliding slide. We'll see if that helps. We've got 10 worker heavies. And again, we're running at 100 PSI, so this should be around 180 FPS. I could tell that one of those dropped quite short. Most of the rest were on target. A few bullseyes I think we'll find. So there you have it, the Sniper Retaliator. Looks stock, but isn't. Looking forward to getting this out on the field at some upcoming events. Stay tuned for some gameplay content. Maybe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.